Okay, welcome back to Violent Money TV. We are back joined by the Cage Warriors lightweight king, George Hardwick. I feel like it's been quite a while since the last time we spoke, which maybe to me it's felt like it's flown by, but it was only when I went on Tapology to find out exactly how long it's been since the last time you fought, where I was like, it's been over a year. And I know that there have been multiple reasons for that, but how does it feel to be back with a fight booked? I know that obviously you did have the fight booked earlier this year that didn't end up happening, but you know, it's a long time out, especially for yourself, who I know you like to be super active whenever you can be.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been crazy reflecting on this year. I always pride myself on activity, even when I was a champion, defending my belt. Didn't always like have the longest notice. Like I need to fight on this specific card. I'm just like whenever's ready. When I fought Chris Bungard, they were like putting it together in about 4 or 5 weeks notice for me, and I was well happy with it. I'm always training, pride myself on activity, and then moved into the Contender Series fight. Didn't go the way I wanted. Learned a lot. Had been very active with 5 round fights before that. So me and my brother decided if there's a time to just take a little step back and reinvent myself, that was the time. Went training in San Diego, went training a lot of different places, and then got back into fight camp pretty much the start of 2024. Then there was a freak accident in sparring, got the jaw break, which derailed the comeback for a good while. It was potential ideas of coming back slightly earlier, but it's one of those things. It's like the main target in MMA is the jaw. I was thinking about coming back on an earlier show, but it just given this extra time to come into September. Originally I was looking at time frames. I was thinking maybe I could fight in July, but the people around me were saying just give it an extra month. You'd rather be ready too early than sign into a fight where you get to that date and it's not healed the way you thought it would. But it's been a crazy year. It's been when it was August 14th, that was a year since the contenders fight. I was just trying to have a nap, and I was just getting anxiety about it, thinking that there's been a year of my life with no fights. But it'll all, many amazing things have happened. Many amazing students have come to MFA. I've had so much good training. It'll all pay off.
Yeah, I mean, I remember catching you. I don't remember it was I'm sure it was a Manchester card, so I don't know whether it was the card you were supposed to fight on. I can't remember now. I think you were there because Leon was fighting.
Yeah, it
Um,
was Leon's fight. Yeah,
and obviously the jaw injury wasn't that long, wasn't that far before, so you were still very much in the early stages of it, in terms of recovering from it. And this is something I remember you saying then at the time, and I've seen that you've posted it on social media as well, was about Rafael dos Anjos and how he had the same injury, and obviously like the longevity that that guy has had since that injury, like let alone his career as a whole, is remarkable. And so that was kind of something that you could look to be like, this is not something that is going to be something that plagues me for my career as long as I recover correctly. Was that something that was in your mind, like you said, when people are saying maybe just give it a little bit more time? You're like, this doesn't need to be a substantial, career long injury if I just take the time.
yeah, and there's other people like UK MMA legend Davy Grant. He
Yeah.
said he was back sparring 8 weeks after he broke his jaw, and then still got knocked out with a night bonus. He's a he's a crazy man, legend.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, David Grant, yeah, it says it all. How was it kind of getting back to training? Because I don't know, I know that it must have been difficult to kind of gauge, like, okay, when do you go back in? Because you, like you said, you don't want to jump the shark almost and go back in, but then also, is there kind of an effect where it takes a little bit longer? Like, obviously, you had a decent amount of time off because of it, but then does it take a little bit of time mentally as well to get back into like the full flow of training? Because is it in the back of your head at all?
It's in the back of your head, and then it goes very quickly once you're in a round, and you just get into it. This makes me appreciate how much you can develop without just doing the standard heavy contact training all the time. Sometimes I do just do it because it's part of the routine. You put in the rounds. But I had a long time, no solid food, no rounds. I'd study a lot of tape. I'd train physically, everything I could train physically. I was coaching a lot more from the side. And as soon as I could demonstrate moves without it being a risk, I was demonstrating moves. There was loads of students. I was given extra time for. When Harry was fighting, training for his title fight, I couldn't be the sparring partner that I normally would be, but it allowed me to watch all his rounds. I'd record his rounds, watch him back, and you just spot things. And when I finally came back to rounds, started with grappling and then moved into rounds, there was loads of stuff that I'd improved and added to my game. No spoilers, but won't give it away before the fight, but added to my game without smashing the rounds to do it. It's like the gains without as much of the physical harm. I was wondering, would I do the no sparring approach? That old Max Holloway, the quotation marks Max Holloway, because he's always seemed to spar, even though he said no sparring,
I
whatever.
think he did that for like a camp, and then like you said, it became the Max Holloway technique that he doesn't even do. But yeah,
he was sparring loads for the Gaethje fight, from what I've heard. But
yeah,
I've gotten back into just the kind of regular sparring flow, but knowing that it's a quality over quantity type thing.
Yeah, that you mentioned then about adding things to your game and being able to look at it analytically. I remember that one of the big kind of immediate lessons, I'm sure there have been loads that you've kind of picked up on over the months after, but one of the immediate lessons that you learned after that Contender Series fight was about how much stuff you were putting out on social media without realizing that people could watch it and kind of get breakdowns of you from it. How has that been kind of balancing that? I know that for a while you kind of just tapered it back quite a lot. But how has it been, again, kind of looking at things a little bit differently and thinking, maybe I shouldn't put this or that out because you never know who's going to be watching it?
Yeah, I do like doing breakdowns, and I do like giving away technical content because it's more useful for people. But I realized I was getting so far into the algorithms and trying to balance social media across all these different things. Mm, like that use of energy, I could give it to my own training a lot more, my training partners' training, my students' training. It's and just everything else in my life. I was given so much to TikTok and so much to YouTube Shorts, getting spread thin. I was actually, I was in one of my local diners, Lucky's, and people are just astounded by the size of the breakfasts and everything there. He does these crazy portions. And people saying, you should post these on TikTok. You should post these on Instagram Reels. And he says, no, I only do Facebook. You post it across everything. You get spread too thin trying to balance everything. And to be honest, he's right. I'll still share stuff, but it's more general about predictions of fights or general training etiquette, these types of things. I do it minimal. I don't look at how this applies to the algorithm. I'll just open up the camera, talk for 2 minutes, post it. A lot of the time, I don't put any captions or hashtags. I'll just close it. Boom, that's me done for the day. I'm relaxing, I'm sleeping, I'm studying film, and then it's focused on my own training. And I feel the benefits for it.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of feels like with this fight, I'm interested to know how long you were kind of targeting this date as an option because the way that this kind of got announced, it wasn't something that was necessarily on my radar of waiting for you to be announced for this card in a title fight. It very much felt like we went back to your days when you were the champion, and like you said, you were taking fights with Chris Bungard on 5 weeks' notice, and it was like, yeah, sure, whatever card, whatever it is, let's do it. It kind of felt like that. Was it like that, or were you planning for this for a long time?
So I got back from the jaw injury, and as soon as I was into rounds and confident with it, uh, took a good left hook off of Ed Miliband in sparring, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, everything's sound. And I felt sharp and tuned in. Even on my first spar with strikes back from the jaw injury, I felt sharp. My defense felt sharp. My stance felt sharp. I didn't feel like I lost a step. So I was really wanting like late July. And then when I was asking Harry, when I was asking, Ian Dean, the matchmaker, there were a lot of people quite skeptical about the idea. They said, just give it that extra month or so, which, would be the September 7th show, the Glasgow that I'm fighting on next week. I was like, yeah, well, okay. Even though I wanted a bit earlier, it's worked out well preparing for the September 7th. Because, like I said, if it got to July, I was signed in for something and the recovery wasn't quite right, there was something I didn't realize, that would be an issue. But being ready in July and just having to taper it well for September, it's a non-issue. And that's pretty much what I've done.
Yeah. I have to go back to this. Do you train with a guy called Ed Miliband? Because that really threw me off for a minute. I thought you meant like former politician. Well, I guess current politician Ed Miliband.
Well, it's just a guy who's, we called him Ed Miliband when he came in the gym.
Right.
We didn't learn his actual name for about a year and a half until he actually fought amateur, and he's probably got hardest 1-2, hardest left hook, hardest calf kick I've ever known. And I've trained with a lot of fighters, and he's just had a couple amateur fights.
Do you know the
And
guy's
they,
name now so that I could look this guy
oh
up?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's his name? Because otherwise, I'm going to be telling people about this Ed Miliband guy from your gym, and people are going to be looking at me
But
so confused.
as far as social media is confirmed, he's Ed Miliband.
I'll take your word for it. The final thing before we get out of here, I'm always interested to know what you've been up to when you haven't been training. You had a lot of downtime, and like you said, whilst you used it to kind of look at fights in a different way and be able to study film and stuff, I'm sure there was a bunch of stuff that was keeping you busy. What are you doing now when you're not training? Because I think the last time I spoke to you was like it was basically an early Christmas for you because I think John Wick 4 had just come out and Resident Evil 4 was the same day. So there was a lot going on. What are you up to at the moment?
So, at the moment, this is like peak late fight camp into the diet, cutting next week. So it's very short training sessions and then chill. I'm playing a lot of Team Ninja games, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, just completed War Long, Stranger of Paradise, Nioh 2. Here's the thing, like I was trying to play Elden Ring. Everyone raves about Elden Ring. It's the highest Metacritic score game on PS5. I'm trying to play it. I've played 24 hours of it, and I'm like, there's 3 good boss fights. Most of this combat is the same mediocre combat since Dark Souls. Love Dark Souls, but it's very mediocre. Here's the thing. There's Souls clones, which are generally clunky, and then there's Souls clones made by Team Ninja, like Nioh 2, War Long, which just gameplay-wise are just way better than Elden Ring. I played Elden Ring for 24 hours, and there was like 3 good boss fights. I've played Nioh 2, plus the DLCs. There's only like 2 bad boss fights out of 60 or 70. But anyway, that's way too much into Team Ninja. In terms of like further back, when I had the jaw injury, and when I was coming back from the jaw injury, what was taking up my time was a lot of coaching, a lot of breaking down people's rounds, a lot of film study. And I got back into posting because that was something I completely cold turkeyed it for a good few months, especially after the Contender Series fight. I think the Contender Series fight did me a favor in that respect because the way I was posting so perniciously and so aggressively before that fight, just constant, almost like that Gary V 4 a day, checking my phone every 2 minutes to just see the refresh and see what new likes and what new comments are. It's draining. And I think had I maybe won that fight with something interesting, my head would have gone way far up my own arse. So I think there's a good plus in that respect, but it's just a lot less time on social media. But I realized in the hospital, I do like, I had like 3 days in the hospital before my surgery and then another day or so after. I realized I do like to share stuff. I'm just figuring out what I can share. Predictions on fights, general technique things, more like technique things I see in, like a beginner to intermediate sparring class that the people watching probably can use, rather than this is my game here, this is a carpet combination or whatever, and then suddenly it doesn't work in the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember speaking to Harry before his title fight. I was kind of getting an update from him on how the duel was going, and he said that he kind of hyped it up and said that you were looking absolutely phenomenal going into that March fight that didn't end up happening. So I'm excited to see. I don't want to say George Hardwick 2.0 because I feel like we've already seen a couple of different versions. I feel like there was points where you've already turned corners in Cage Warriors, but like you said, that Contender Series fight, I'm sure there was some huge lessons that you gained from that, and then being able to kind of, like you said, look at fights from a different perspective and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. I haven't spoken much about the opponent because I don't know that much about the opponent.
So Cristian Iorga, there was a lot of people saying no. A lot of people from...
That's what I assumed.
There were people from Cage Warriors saying no. There were people from different organizations saying no. And then Cristian Iorga said yes. He's 7-1, Heroes Fight League champion. He's got a really good grappling resume. He's got a really good amateur resume as well. He's a very tough fighter. He's a bit shorter. He loves his takedowns. He loves to land his shots. But yeah, he's a very tough fighter. He can fight it out. He's pulled fight, from the jaws of defeat. He's gotten wins in the third round. He's gotten wins fighting through tough things. He's a very, very solid opponent. Not underestimating him at all.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. I'm super happy that you're able to get back and that you were able to take a little bit longer in terms of making sure that everything is good to go, firing on all cylinders for this one. And as always, mate, all the best, and I'll probably catch you sometime after. Hopefully I'll be there for when Harry defends his belt next. I'm not going to be making it to Scotland, unfortunately. But yeah.
I'll have an extra pizza crunch after the fight for you.
God, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you. Hopefully, I will join you guys for one at some point. But until then, have one for me. All right. Thank you, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too.